Hey everyone, it's Brett from Hope to Prosper, and I'm at Channel Islands National Park on the island of Santa Cruz, and this is my 30th National Park, so I'm really excited about it. Going on a nice hike today to Potato Harbor and Cavern Point, so I'll take you along with me. Thanks for coming along. I hope you enjoy the hike, and I hope you enjoy the beautiful scenery. Today I want to talk about why it's so hard to retire. This is a subject that came up at one of our weekly meetings of the early retirement crew. We were basically having bagels 2 weeks ago and talking, and the consensus around the table was that it was really hard for some people to retire, especially men. And so I thought I would address this issue and offer some quick advice to counter this problem and, help you get started confidently in your retirement. Or if you're not retiring, to consider it. So, okay, let's dig in. Let's get started. First, I want to talk about work-life identity because I think this is an important thing, especially, like I said, especially for men or especially for people higher level positions, even women who are successful. So they think their importance will diminish. And, that may or may not be true. It's especially true for people who are, like I said, higher up and more successful. People in the C-suites, lawyers, doctors, people who have, importances in, say, sciences or academia. When they lose their identity, a lot of their cachet or their prestige is going to disappear with their job. And this may or may not be true. I think for some people it is. For other people, they just let it go. I was a middle manager, so I wasn't that worried about it. But, I could see, like our CEO, he worked late into his years. Long after he probably should have retired. He was there for the company and for the purpose and probably for the prestige. You're going to miss your coworkers, and that's for sure. That's been my experience. I've had some great jobs with some great coworkers, great friends, and you're off and retired, and they're busy. They're struggling at work. They got kids to get to soccer practice. You have to make time to see your coworkers because they won't have the time for you once your daily routine of being together is gone. You'll miss being part of a team. Some people miss this. This is something I missed. I had my own department, but it was a critical department to the company, IT, and so I missed being part of the team and, and contributing. And so I will say that for me, that was definitely a problem, or when I left, something I missed. And you'll lose part of your purpose. Now, to some people, their work is their purpose. And to me, it really wasn't, so I didn't feel like I lost my purpose. When I was working, we created a product that took 8 years to get through clinical trial, and it was kind of like a medical miracle. It was a back implant, a spinal implant, and it really helped people. So those kind of things are purpose at a job that, you may not get after you retire. But let's talk about what you won't miss, and especially I don't miss. You won't miss the stress. Number one, I'm putting stress as number one. I had no idea how stressed I was. It took me about 2 or 3 months to get rid of the stress, and then once I realized it was gone, I could see stress in other people's faces and in their voices and stuff. And a lot of people have said this on YouTube channels, retirement channels, that you have no idea how much stress you're under. And every job is different, but in my case, I was under a lot of stress, more than I knew. Don't miss it one bit. You won't miss the meetings. Man, I hated the mind-numbing meetings where nothing got accomplished and everybody wanted to talk. And, I'm a pragmatist. I just get right to things and I want to get them done. I don't miss all the meetings. You won't miss commuting. For my whole 40-plus year career, all except 8 years of those, I was commuting about half hour to 45 minutes each way. So sometimes I'd be sitting in the car for an hour and a half every day. Man, I don't miss that. What a huge, stressful waste of my life. I'm just sitting in a car all day. and you won't miss the alarm clock. I know I don't. I turned off my alarm clock about 2 or 3 years before I retired. Right when COVID happened, I just decided to turn off the alarm clock because I was working from my office anyways at home. And man, I don't miss the alarm clock. I have to turn it on sometimes if I'm traveling or fishing or hunting or something, hiking. But in general, I don't miss the daily alarm clock. And you won't miss the weekly routine. You know, I had a weekly routine where I would come home on Friday nights and I would have a couple drinks and, you know, just kind of, you know, relax after the stressful week. And then I was telling somebody, man, I don't do that anymore on Friday nights. And then I realized, hey, I haven't worked in 3 years, so I don't miss that. I don't miss the Sunday night blahs. I don't miss the Friday night, yay, I'm off. You don't miss the weekly routine. In fact, I kind of loathe weekends, and I enjoy the weekdays more. You'll get a new identity. And my identity is just Brett, Dad, Grandpa, whatever. I'm just me. I don't have an identity, a work-related identity. And, you know, I don't miss it. I don't miss being a manager and running a department. That's not my identity anymore. Now I think about my own life and my own purpose. And you'll find a new purpose. This is something that, you know, when I first retired, you know, everybody says, oh, you have to retire to something. And I was trying to create a purpose and trying to come up with a purpose. And, you know, the truth is that I've decided I don't really need a big purpose in retirement. My purpose is to enjoy myself and spend time with my family and enjoy some of my days that are not hectic before they disappear. So, you know, some people create a whole new purpose. They volunteer, they do all kinds of things. But I've found that I haven't needed a big purpose in retirement. I might still develop one, but you'll find a new purpose. Even if your purpose is golf or travel in my case, or hiking, whatever, you'll find a new purpose and you'll enjoy it. Okay, so let's talk about fear of the unknown. I think this is one of the things that really keeps people stuck. It's not that, you know, that work is so seductive as much as ending work is kind of scary. And so, you know, the first fear that you hear people say all the time is the fear of being bored. You know, they're scared that, you know, they're going to have nothing to do all day. And, you know, for some people that may be a really real fear. For me, it hasn't been. I mean, I wish I had more time, and I have all day. So fear of being bored hasn't affected me at all, but I could see where it could be a problem. Fear of financial failure. You know, this is a funny thing. My whole life, I've been scared of going broke. I had some really rough times when I first moved out, and I was just terrified of being broke. And then as I got more and more comfortable, let's just say, and then finally became financially independent, that fear is dissipated. But for the first couple months of retirement, man, I was scared to death I was going to go broke. And one of the things that also exacerbated that was the Monte Carlo simulation showing me going broke. That scared me. But anyways, fear of financial failure, that's very real. Everybody has a different financial situation. Some people are more on the edge than others. And so that's a big fear, and I think it's a valid fear. Fear of health problems. Here's an interesting thing. A lot of people believe that as soon as they're retired, they're going to die soon. And there was a study out, I think it was in the 1970s, by one of the oil companies, where they said that, you know, they showed that people retired soon after dying. Died soon after retiring. And that's been debunked since then. You know, it is a possibility, you know, that you could die right after retirement, but most likely, if you retire into good conditions, it probably would improve your life and extend your life as opposed to the other way around. I know my health has dramatically improved since I retired because I have more time to take care of myself and less stress and less time taking care of the company. Here's a big one. Fear of social isolation. Now that's a big fear, and that's a legitimate fear. In fact, it's a lot more dangerous than people realize. You know, if your whole life is work and your entire social circle are coworkers, you know, retiring especially if you don't have a family at home, you're a single person, retiring to an empty house, that can be a real fear, and it's something to try and avoid. If you have a fear of social isolation, that's something you have to pay attention to, and you should be thinking about ways to, bring people into your life. Join meetups. I have a retirement meetup. I have bagels with brothers. I eat bagels with my 3 brothers. I go hiking. I do all kinds of things to keep me motivated. Plus, I have a wife and kids and grandkids, so I'm pretty lucky. But fear of social isolation, that's a big deal, and don't overlook that. And so anyways, I just want to close by saying, I'm not making light of these fears. They're real, and they can be very devastating to some people, and you need to address them. And you also need to think about if this is the thing that's keeping me working, keeping me chained to a desk when I'm financially able to retire, maybe you should address those fears and see if they're valid, and think about them, and maybe counter them with some real logic and some real heart-to-heart thinking about, is this a real fear, or is this just something that's out there for me? Okay, let's talk about the next item. People hate change. Oh my God, it takes a lot of energy to make a big change in your life, and retirement is a big change. Some people are more scared of dying than retiring, but it's kind of like getting divorced from your job. It's a big, dramatic change. And change is disruptive to our lives. It makes us have to completely redo our routine, everything else in our life. And it takes a lot of courage to make changes of this magnitude. It takes a lot of energy, and it takes a lot of courage. In reality, it's easier just to stay the course and keep doing what you're doing, and keep your head down and your nose to the grindstone, and just act like life is good. But it takes a lot more courage to actually make a change and retire. But leveling up, it has its advantages. Making these change in your life, I know for me, it's been life changing. I've met a bunch of my goals. I'm healthier. I'm adventuring. I'm doing all kinds of stuff I could have never done when I was working so hard. So it's worth the change. Leveling up, it has its advantages. In a new life, it may be better than the old one. I know mine is. So think about that. That's the reward for making this big change. And finally, I just want to say that change creates opportunities. And this is a big deal. When you change, that's when opportunities appear. And all of a sudden, when you look up from your desk and you have this free time to yourself, what are you going to do with it? So making the change, that's going to benefit you in ways you probably have never thought of. I know for me, it really has. I'm spending a lot of time learning, adventuring, doing all kinds of stuff, whereas before I was just stuck in a grind. Okay, so let's talk about the bottom line. The bottom line is that retirement's a huge lifestyle change, and it creates a lot of fear in some people, especially when it comes, unexpectedly, like you just get laid off all of a sudden, or you're injured or something. But many studies show that retirement is the most enjoyable part of most people's lives. If you look at the happiness studies, they show that this time in your life, early retirement, it's probably going to be some of the happiest time in your life. You have complete freedom and flexibility, and it allows you to shape your life as you choose. You're not being told what to do. You're not being coerced by an employer. Now you have total freedom. And you haven't probably been this free since before you went to kindergarten, and you were just young then. Now's your chance to enjoy your newfound freedom while you have your health, while you have the time, and while you have the finances. Okay, thanks for coming along. Millie's here and Maria. We're gonna go get dinner or happy hour or something. I'm starving. So anyways, thanks for coming along. Hope you enjoyed it. Boy, the scenery is so beautiful. The hike was so beautiful. Channel Islands National Park never disappointed me. So anyways, thanks for coming along. I wish you all health, happiness, and prosperity in your lives. And I will see you next time on our next big adventure.